All right. Thank you, Mindy. Welcome everybody to this month's soil workshop. My name is Jacob Isleib. Probably had a number of you in the first workshop that we did. That was back in December that I was on. I also want to, I guess, reintroduce Lisa Kral. Lisa, are you able to unmute right now?
Yep. Hello, everyone.
So yeah, Lisa and I are going to be covering this month's workshop, and the focus of this month's workshop are going to be key points 2 and key point 4 from the Soils Envirothon curriculum. And those are the subjects are soil ecosystems and soil conservation and land use management. So we're going to get right into it. We have a number of videos we're going to share, and then we're going to have question and answer between. One of the videos is a longer lecture. It's a little bit over 20 minutes. If at any point during any of these videos, and especially that lecture, if you have any questions, please throw them into the chat, and we should have opportunities in that one to pause it, and we can address anybody's questions, kind of break it up. So without further ado, we'll get started with this first video titled "The Science of Soil Health: Dynamic Soil Properties." Let me share that. Okay.
We're out here in some tall grass prairie in Nebraska, and I'm with Skye Wills, who is a soil scientist with the NRCS's National Soil Survey Center. And Skye, I was just fascinated by our conversation earlier about the work that you do in dynamic soil properties, and I'm particularly interested in how that works with farmers. Will you explain to me very briefly, and really in terms of how farmers think of it, what are dynamic soil properties?
Sure. Well, I think about dynamic soil properties as any property that changes with time. And farmers are usually most interested in those that change with management systems. What I would like to say to farmers about dynamic soil properties is we know that what you have right now may or may not be what the potential of your soil is. I would like to introduce the idea that the soil properties can be improved, that as a farmer, the way you manage the inputs, the amount of disturbance, tillage, pesticides, the crop rotation, those all influence the soil properties today. And the soil properties today influence what you're going to be able to do tomorrow. And in this climatic landscape where everything is changing, the crops we can grow, the yields that we're able to obtain, the price of fertilizer, the price of diesel, these are all unknowns, but with good management, your soil should be able to withstand all of that. You have the most opportunities and the most potential with the best managed soil.
Help me understand why the idea of dynamic soil properties has only emerged now. It doesn't seem to be very much common currency in farming circles, in agronomic circles.
Well, the term dynamic soil properties has really arisen from the intersection of soil survey and a traditional approach to mapping landscapes and soil management, and especially soil health and soil biology, which are emerging fields. Although they've been around for a while, it's just now there's some synergy between those different areas. And I think that we're starting to learn each other's terminology, and we're finding that this idea of dynamic soil properties is common ground. It's something we can all understand, we can all talk about together, and we can really use it to integrate and hopefully expand our research and knowledge.
All right. So just first off, did the audio and everything and the image come through okay for everybody? I should have asked right after I turned it on, but if you have any issues with the quality of any of the videos or anything, please let us know in the chat. And so now we'll have a little Q&A. If anybody has any questions about kind of that short intro video, please throw them in the chat. All right, seeing none. Right. I guess we can move on to the next video here. So we have kind of a longer lecture video, really getting into the details of both the soil ecosystems and soil conservation and land use management key topics. And there's one video embedded in this presentation. Most of the presentation is kind of like a screen share presentation. So we will get right into it. Again, if anybody has any questions about any of these concepts as the video is rolling, please throw them into the chat. We can take a break, halfway through and address any questions that anybody has, if there are any. So I'll get this queued up. All right. Welcome to this presentation titled Soil Ecosystems, Soil Conservation, and Land Use Management. My name is Jacob Isleib. I'm a soil scientist with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service in Connecticut. Our learning objectives today cover two key points in the Soils Envirothon curriculum. Those are soil ecosystems and soil conservation and land use management. So let's get started looking at soil ecosystems. Just generally, in 1 square meter of soil, we are talking about the capacity to have a lot of life with a lot of biodiversity. So you can see down at the bottom in that, we can have into the trillions of bacteria, protozoa, millions of nematodes. And as we get looking at larger and larger microorganisms up to macroorganisms, those numbers become fewer. This is also a function of land use and land management, which is going to be a theme of this presentation forward. So this next slide kind of shows under different management systems. So we have agricultural soils in the first column, prairie soils, so kind of more of a perennial grassland type land use, and then forested soils. And you can see there's a variety of numbers of these different bacteria, fungi, micro and macroorganisms that we can see under these different managements. And just to kind of give you a visual of what some of these look like, we've got everything from microorganisms up to arthropods, nematodes, and we can't go through this presentation without mentioning everybody's favorite soil organism, the tardigrade or water bear. So there you have the tardigrade. Beneficial impacts of soil organisms are that they're responsible for the cycling of carbon, nitrogen, and other soil nutrients. They enhance soil structure. They relocate and decompose organic matter. They increase soil aeration, which has impacts to things like water and gas exchange that we'll talk about in a little bit. It can control plant disease transmission. And this diagram of the soil food web is borrowed from the Soil Biology Primer, which is a great publication. And it shows, kind of where organic matter fits into the soil food web, and it really kind of fuels that whole food web. Generally, soil organic matter is plant or animal tissue in various stages of decomposition. And all of this soil organic matter, depending on your soil type, it may actually be a relatively small amount of the entire soil. So we covered this before in general soil properties, but typically in our soils, we consider about half of the soil volume to be taken up by pore space that can be filled by either air or water, and the rest of it is solid material. In mineral soils, we may have most of that in actual mineral materials, and then a small amount of that as organic matter. We do have soils, say like in tidal marshes or in very wet areas like swamps that may have much higher organic matter content. We have varying levels of stability and activity in that soil organic matter fraction between the humus and kind of the more actively decomposing material. Why does soil organic matter accumulate in soils? There's a few reasons for this. Recalcitrance, also known as digestibility, has much to do with carbon to nitrogen ratios and lignin content of organic matter. Soil microbes are more efficient at digesting soil organic matter that is closer to their own carbon to nitrogen ratio. This is why a piece of wood with a high carbon to nitrogen ratio takes much longer to decompose than something like a banana peel with a lower carbon to nitrogen ratio. Recalcitrance is also a reason why adding nitrogen fertilizers to soils accelerates soil organic matter decomposition. Mineral protection is another reason. Soil carbon may be tightly bound to soil mineral particles, so tightly that microorganisms can't access them. Last reason is physical protection. Soil organic matter protected within soil aggregates. Microorganisms cannot access physically protected soil organic matter until the aggregate is disrupted by something like a plant root or mechanical disturbance. This concept is related to why tillage in agricultural systems accelerates soil organic matter decomposition. This map illustrates the spatial variability in soil organic carbon stocks across the United States. Wetter and colder climates favor soil organic matter accumulation, and you can see that the wetter temperate regions like the Pacific Northwest, Northern Midwest, and Northeast have higher soil organic carbon stocks, whereas the hot South and arid Southwest have much lower carbon stocks. The beneficial impacts of soil organic matter and organic carbon are physical, so we have aggregation in the improvement of soil structure, which provides us a lot of functions like increased infiltration and water movement. It also improves water holding capacity. It lowers bulk density. For chemical benefits, we have increased cation exchange capacity, or we can think of this as kind of like a nutrient holding capacity. It can act as a buffer to soil pH, so affecting our soil acidity. It can tie up metals and contaminants. So for biological benefits, it supplies energy for soil organisms and increases microbial populations and activities. It's a source and sink for nutrients. Here we're going to show a video that's going to explain water movement in soils, since we referenced that in the prior slide. So let's watch this.
When rainfall hits the Earth's surface, one of two things can happen. Water can run off the land, or often, with the help of sound land management practices, water can move into the soil to be an environmental positive rather than a negative. The soil itself has an influence on whether water runs off or moves into the soil. Here's a brief explanation of how and why soils transmit water at different rates, and why you should check a soil survey when you're concerned about runoff, flooding, leaching, or other environmental hazards. Water movement in the soil is strongly influenced by soil particle size, or texture, as well as structure and pore size. Soil texture is the relative amount of sand, silt, and clay-sized soil particles. Sand particles are the largest, silt is intermediate, and clay is the smallest. Water moves more quickly through the large open macropores found in sandy soils than the smaller pores of silt or the much smaller flat-shaped micropores in dense clay soils. Soil structure also impacts water movement. Water moves more quickly downward in soils with granular structure than a soil with platy structure that forces a longer indirect path downward. Other structures include prismatic and subangular blocking. Water is nearly always moving in the soil, and it can be in any direction simultaneously. Gravity is the dominant force that moves water downward. Restricted soil layers of compacted soil or bedrock are among the reasons water moves laterally. Capillary action, the attraction of water into soil pores, can move water in any direction. Gravity is the primary water-moving force in saturated soils, while capillary actions are the primary forces in unsaturated soils. Capillary force is greatest in soils with small pores. Water moves more slowly through these soils. Well, that's a brief explanation of what a soil scientist calls saturated hydraulic conductivity. In simpler terms, the capacity of a soil to transmit water. Since downward moving water carries nutrients and can carry contaminants into underlying groundwater, soil percolation rates are important in choosing sites for septic fields, landfills, and other waste burials, as well as underground storage tanks and other uses. The information is critical for planning soil drainage, irrigation, and tillage systems, as well as other crop management practices. Get the information you need on water movement rates and other soil properties from a soil survey of your area on the web at www.soils.usda.gov.
All right, there you have it. So managing for organisms in soil organic matter. We're going to kind of look at managing for these under the lens of soil health, which is defined as the continued capacity of soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. And soil health as a practice kind of has some different tenets that are directly related to managing soil organic matter and whatnot. We're going to look at those. But an important concept here is that our soil ecosystems can be managed or mismanaged, with the result being the altered capacity of the soil to support plants and animals. We can kind of think about that as like a potential, right? So any given soil has a certain potential to do any of these functions that we've been talking about. And depending on how it's managed or mismanaged, it might either realize that potential or come up, far short of that potential. So let's look at some soil mismanagement examples. Soil erosion. Soil erosion is a naturally occurring process that affects all landforms. However, it can be drastically accelerated through soil disturbance. In just one rainstorm, enough topsoil that took nature hundreds of years to build could be washed or blown away. And that soil material and soil nutrients, which might be very good things if they're, say, in a crop field, if that same material is deposited in surface waters by erosion, it's considered a pollutant, and it could cause things like algal blooms or pollute source waters. These two pictures are images of wind erosion from the Dust Bowl days. So 3 types of water erosion are sheet, rill, and gully erosion. Sheet erosion, we can kind of think of that as soil being eroded in thin layers. Under B there, rill erosion and gully erosion are where the erosive forces are being concentrated into channels, and a small channel is called a rill. And where those channels are very, very large, we would refer to that as like gully erosion. So there on the bottom, we have a picture of a gully. Here's a picture showing examples of sheet and rill erosion. So you can see those channelized areas or rills, and then down at the bottom you can see where you have deposition of all of that eroded material that was being taken off as sheets or in rills. Wind erosion occurs when soil particles are detached, transported, and deposited by the wind. Erosion of surface soil by winds renders the soil less productive because we're really removing that uppermost part, that's the most fertile part of the soil. Other impacts include, plant damage by abrasion from suspended soil particles and the negative impacts to water and air quality. Here's some examples of techniques that are used in agricultural systems to mitigate wind and water erosion. So we have contour strip cropping system. So you can see that instead of the crop rows in straight lines, possibly going up and down the slope, that might, really cause the surface runoff to be channelized and maybe form, rills or gullies, or cause those rows are really oriented on contour with the landforms. We also have terraces, and we have buffer strips. So we might have areas surrounding areas of surface waters or wetlands to help slow down or capture erosion that may be carrying soil material, soil nutrients. A holistic approach for mitigating soil erosion and other soil degradation are the 4 core principles of soil health management. So that's provide continuous living roots, minimizing disturbance, maximizing soil cover, and maximizing biodiversity. So the features of healthy soils that we would like to see if we're following these core principles of soil health management are soils that have stable and porous structure, high levels of soil organic matter, and a thriving biological community. This would allow for maximum infiltration and percolation of stormwater, therefore reducing runoff and erosion. It would mitigate drought by holding more plant available water, and optimize nutrient cycling and storage, therefore reducing offsite inputs like chemical fertilizer additions, money, etc. Soil health also has a temporal dimension, and so some of the effects of managing our soil organic matter properly are going to take longer to realize. One thing that we see early on are increased or improved aggregation, followed by infiltration, water holding capacity, and then nutrient holding capacity, and finally productivity. So, we have this transition period where we're kind of building our soil health. We have it for, periods of years, and over time, we're going to finally see those increases in productivity. But it takes a real commitment and a resolve to kind of see this through, because it doesn't just all happen right away. And now we're going to look closely at land use, land cover, and dynamic soil properties. So this kind of directly relates to what we've been talking about with, say, soil health management and the different capacity of soils or different potentials of soils under different management or mismanagement. Again, not all soil properties are dynamic. We have some, like soil texture, that are pretty static unless you were to bring in a large amount of new material. Most of the time under most management systems, that's an unrealistic. So our dynamic soil properties are those that are subject to change under different management. So you might have a very different range of something like soil organic matter content, organic carbon, your structure, strength, those kinds of things, depending on how you manage your soils. We have crop systems. We have hay, where you're having perennial vegetation that's harvested. And then we have pasture systems, so that's where like a livestock would be directly harvesting right off the field. And for non-agricultural systems, we have forested areas, and kind of under forest, we have both managed and unmanaged forests. We have lawn and turf, so in our residential areas and on campuses, things like that, we have extensive areas of grass that are just mowed. They're not really harvested as forage for animals or anything. And then kind of on the extreme side of soil use, we have areas where the soil is really effectively sealed under impervious surfaces. So we have a lot of area that's taken up by pavement and buildings. In crop systems, we tend to have a high level of inputs. So additions of chemicals or manures, limestone to control soil pH, and then potentially pesticides. So the effects of these on our soil organic matter and things like biodiversity are going to be that these additions of nutrients are going to kind of kick the decomposition, the microorganisms into overdrive, and it's really going to accelerate the organic matter decomposition. And so we're going to reduce the accumulation of those organic matter and organic carbon. Also, the effects of pesticides and can have a great effect on the biodiversity of the microorganisms. As far as tillage, this can vary quite a bit because we do have no-till agriculture, conservation tillage, and then all the way up to conventional tillage where it might be doing a lot of soil disturbance, mechanical soil disturbance. And that also is going to accelerate decomposition of organic matter and further reduce the amount that we have. So the effect on the dynamic soil properties is that overall we're going to have lower soil organic carbon and organic matter in the surface. Our structure and aggregate stability can vary quite a bit by management, but it tends to have less strong structure, lower aggregate stability, especially where they're doing a lot of disturbance with tillage because it really breaks up those aggregates. And water movement can vary quite a bit. And this is the management type where we really focus a lot of our efforts with these soil health tenants because the style of agricultural management and crop systems can vary so widely that applying soil health principles can really have quite a bit of influence on these. And then on the right, we have some profiles showing a difference. There's a reduced tillage field that's fallow, that was a cropped field, but it has a very well established cover crop on it. And then at the right, you can see there's a field that's currently planted to corn. There's a lot more bare soil, so we have less soil coverage. And you can kind of see there's less structural development. Another agricultural land use are hay and pasture systems. So the inputs to these tend to be lower. You may or may not have chemical fertilizers being used on these. You may or may not have manures either directly deposited or spread. Typically with a lot of our cropped and hay pastures, soil acidity will be managed with limestone. Pesticides may or may not be used in these. And your disturbance can be low to high in these. So, if it's a small field that maybe has too much livestock on it, it could be, a high traffic pasture system that could have a lot of disturbance. And then we see where there are large fields that have relatively low amounts of livestock could be at the opposite end of the spectrum. And same thing with hay, where you actually have mechanical harvesting, just depending on how much they're using farm machinery across it. Dynamic soil properties in these are going to tend to have a higher soil organic carbon content. The structure and aggregate stability tends to be good, which is kind of reflecting that perennial vegetation. And the water movement tends to be better unless we have like a compacted type situation from too much traffic. And non-agricultural land use and forested systems. So these tend to have very low inputs. You would typically not be using chemical fertilizers here. They're typically not managed for soil pH, and pesticides are typically their disturbance can be anywhere from low to high in these, and that really depends on whether it's managed for timber harvest or forestry operations, and then how it's managed in there. So we have quite a range of everything from if something was like clear cut under poor soil moisture conditions, it could be really beat up, to more targeted harvesting with innovative equipment that's really designed to minimize soil disturbance. And then definitely in our unmanaged areas where they're not getting really any kind of traffic, that disturbance is going to be very low. So the effect on dynamic soil properties for these is that they have very high soil organic carbon in the surface. In our area here in Connecticut, in our forested areas, we generally see the development of O horizons. So we actually have a thin horizon, it might be an inch or two, that's primarily just organic matter. Our structure and aggregate stability is very, very high, very strong, and that's a function of that high level of organic matter. And water movement, it's realized its highest potential aside from where it might be compacted. Now that we've taken a close look at these three land uses and their effects on dynamic soil properties, let's revisit the four core principles of soil health. In our managed forest and agricultural systems, by reducing inputs and minimizing disturbance, we're able to maximize soil ecosystem function. It's a little counterintuitive at first, but now we can see that soils often function best when we let them do their thing, or so to speak. It may take years to realize the maximum potential of any given soil, but long-term, applying soil health principles is an economically and ecologically sustainable soil management method. Taking this concept of the functional potential of soils further, we want to introduce a system of farmland classification applied to the soil types in the soil survey data. USDA-NRCS classifies different soil types into farmland classes based on their capacity for food and fiber production. This is where the term prime farmland is defined and applied. Prime farmland is land that has the best combination of physical and chemical characteristics for producing food, feed, forage, fiber, and oilseed crops, and is available for these uses. Prime farmland criteria varies from state to state to accommodate different regional commodities and management systems, but what prime farmland soils have in common is that they are deep, not too wet, are not too steep, and have ideal textures for water and nutrient holding. Prime farmland soils do not have to currently be agriculturally managed, that is, they could currently be in forest, but they cannot be built up or covered with impervious surface. I want to emphasize that these soil properties used in farmland classification are static or unchangeable soil properties, not the dynamic soil properties that we've been focusing on when we talk about soil health principles. Even when we've maximized the potential of a soil, if it doesn't have the ideal combination of soil depth, slope, soil moisture condition, and soil texture, then it is not considered prime farmland. Other regulated land types include wetlands, and they're defined in different ways according to the respective law or regulation. So there's kind of not one wetland definition to rule them all, but wetlands are all united in that they are wet, which is kind of a joke, but the truth to it is that they are highly affected by soil moisture, some to the point of being temporarily or permanently inundated or underwater, but all, at least periodically, are saturated at or near the surface. Wetland soils are characterized by high levels of organic carbon at their surface, and that's because, being wet and saturated for longer periods of time, that slows the decomposition. So we see high organic matter in the surface. And then they also have a unique iron chemistry due to the long periods of saturation. That's shown in the photo at the top right. Those are an example of redoxamorphic features. And we're going to cover redox features in another presentation, but we didn't want to show that with this wetland soil profile here. How do we assess dynamic soil properties and soil plant nutrient levels in soils? Well, we are able to make general interpretations about soil organic matter content based on soil color and can visually observe properties like soil structure strength. But soil laboratories allow us to quantify many of these properties and measure nutrient levels that we are unable to interpret visually. We show 2 local labs available here for some of these analyses. There are other university and commercial labs that specialize in measuring soil health indicators and dynamic soil properties. But these 2 shown, while not an endorsement, are popular local options that provide homeowners and farmers much of what they need to make informed management decisions about their soils. In summary, this presentation covered the soil ecosystems and soil conservation and land use management key points of the Envirothon curriculum. We learned that even a small area of soil can be host to trillions of organisms. Organic matter is the fuel of the soil food web, and that fostering soil organisms and organic matter through soil health principles helps soils reach their maximum functional potential. We also learned that all land uses affect dynamic soil properties to some extent, but through soil conservation and soil health principles, we can minimize negative impacts. We also look closely at soil water movement and consider how building soil structure affects it. And finally, we were introduced to the concept of farmland classification, prime farmland, and wetlands. Thanks for watching. Okay. I know that was kind of throwing a lot at everybody, but hopefully you all hung in there. And now we have Lisa Kroll we have at least one question for the group. And Lisa?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So we'd like you to use your chat and write in the kinds of soil organisms and creatures that you would expect to find from the conversation of the Oh, maybe just fill some things in. Anybody can go right ahead.
All right,
Oh,
we're starting
all
to
right.
get some responses there.
Bacteria,
Got-
nematodes, arthropods.
Very
Good.
good.
Fungi, yep. Protozoa. Any other ideas? You know what those cute little bear things were that Jacob put up? They're getting very popular on social media. You know what those are called? Even my pottery colleagues are talking about them. No?
What were they saying at the Potters Guild?
Oh, they just, someone was given a stuffed one for, stuffed animal toy. Okay, they're just so funny. They're so cute. So they are called tardigraphs. And go back in the presentation, if not now, but at some point there, or Google that. They've got what, 8 legs and
Yeah,
funny
so
face.
and an interesting thing about them is, and hopefully I get this right. This might be paraphrasing the whole situation, but I think at some point, astronauts, I think they were from Israel. I might have the country wrong, but astronauts, they bring plants and they run experiments when they're on the space stations, and I think that they brought tardigrades up there to evaluate them, and they were something happened, and some of them were released. And I think that they've found that they can. I think that maybe they go dormant or something like that when they're like in the vacuum of space, but I think that they were able to recapture some of them, and they found out that they like kind of came back to life. So they're like the only thing that I think that they found that can kind of survive space. So that's
kind of like a naked mole
one of
rat.
their claims to fame.
Okay. All right. I just posted it up there if you want to Google them and find out more about them. Tardigrades. I was pronouncing it wrong too. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, folks. So that was kind of our longer presentation. I guess most of the meat of these 2 key points. So if anybody has any questions about this, we have 2 more shorter videos during this workshop, but throw any questions in the chat. We'll definitely have Q&A at the very end to address any questions. So we'll get started with this next video. So this next video, before we get into it, this is a demonstration that we would typically run at the in-person Envirothon workshop that we've done at the Tolland Ag Center, at least like the last couple of years. And with the pandemic and everything, this summer we recorded Milton running this demonstration so that we can share it even when we're not in person. So get this all queued up, and here we.
Hi, my name is Milton Vega. I am a soil scientist with the United States Department of Agriculture, and today I will be demonstrating the Rainfall simulator. I have 5 soil samples here. These two here are from the same field. It's a annually tilled cornfield. This does not have residue, and this one here does. This is from a garden. This here is from a lawn. And this here is from a forested site. So now I'm going to proceed to make it rain. As you can see, so on this one right here, you can see it has the waterfalls. It's not very stable soil, so it kind of just detaches from the top and has a lot of runoff and silts and small particles. this one here is the same soil, but if you look at the water cleanliness, it's pretty clear. So little to no soil detachment. This one here is not as disturbed, has very little soil detachment, so it kind of stuck together, makes it good for like soil aggregates. So as a soil is not disturbed, it makes better soil aggregates. They kind of stick together. Then this one here has runoff. This is so this is grass. It's a lawn, so it has very little to root mass. So it has fair amount of runoff. And this here is the forested site. This one had like basically no runoff. So the water just penetrated, and it has good soil aggregates, and it has very good soil structure, so it makes like pores, and it will infiltrate better. Now I'm gonna pull these off. This is from the forested site, so you can see pretty clear water. This is from the lawn. Very little water infiltration. This is from the garden. So this one has very little soil infiltration. That just means most of it stayed inside the sample, so it has nice pores where it can stay. This is from the field. This one had very little infiltration. And this is from the field as well.
This poster compares no-till and tilled ecosystems or soil profiles. This would be a farmer is not tilling and putting in his crops, and then this is a farmer is actually tilling or plowing his field. So typically what we'll see in these no-till soils is you'll have really good structure. Look at the roots are going down, the structure's really well, more water holding capacity in this soil, and more organisms such as worms, and you'll have crop residue left on the top too. In this tilled ecosystem, when they plow it, they're just burning up all of this crop residue. So all of your organic matter is being decomposed so much more faster. It's leaving nothing on the surface. And then so you get these crusts and really not that great a soil structure. Your water holding capacity is going to be a lot less than this soil. The roots, you're not going to have roots left, and they're going to have a hard time getting through this soil structure. And even below, when you plow, you'll sometimes areas will get this plow pan where the plow just keeps going and pushing in this certain area and compacting that layer. So you might see that, and you'll see these horizontal plate-like structures in the soil, and it's a little bit dense, so the roots have a hard time getting through. Whereas here, they can get through and go much further, find water and support themselves. So that's the difference in no-till and tilled soil systems.
What's very important with these soils is the soil structure. These structural aggregates are very important for water movement, root penetration, and gas exchange. As you can see, these structural units are what we call angular blocky. They have these very sharp, acute angles, and that allows water and roots to move down through this blocky soil structure, increasing the soil health in of these soils. It's very critical when you're working with these soils to do whatever you can to maintain that soil structure, minimize compaction. And what does that mean? That means working them when they're slightly drier, not right after rains or too early in the spring, where you can create some compaction and destruction of that structure.
Okay, all right. So had some different presenters in there. That was Milton Vega, who's a soil scientist with the Soil Survey Office. Debbie Surabian, who I think you all had Debbie for last month's soil workshop. She's the state soil scientist at USDA-NRCS in Connecticut. And then Donald Parazak, who's the soil survey office leader with the Soil Survey Office here in Connecticut. So Lisa, I think we have maybe one or two questions to go with this.
Yeah, we do. So I'm going to list the 5 different soils that or scenarios that Milton had in his simulator. There was an annually tilled corn with bare soil. There was an annually tilled corn with straw residue cover. There was a garden soil with vegetation. There was a lawn, and there was a woodland or forest soil. So which one of those scenarios allowed the most rainfall to get into the soil? You can write that in the chat. Forest. Anybody else have an agreement or a different opinion? Woodland. Good. Okay, so annual tilled corn. All right, so what we're asking was how much of it had more water in the bottom underneath it, so it went through the soil and came out the bottom, not running off into the other one. So if you looked, I think you could probably watch Milton's again, the link will probably be there. The woodland soil had the most water running into it and the least running off in front. And anybody have something they want to say about why that might be? No, so I'll answer that. So basically that's the least disturbed site, and it has quite a bit of organic matter and leaf litter protecting the surface. The other thing which you wouldn't see in this little experiment is on top of all that in the summer, particularly, there's a canopy of leaves, and that also slows the rainwater down and lets it go gradually into the soil. So that's why those forest woodland systems have the best infiltration. Which one, what was my other question? Oh, so which one had high runoff but very little erosion? Which one of those? Which one of those 5? Lawn. And Michael says lawn. Any other thoughts? And why? That's correct. And why would that be the case? Why would lawn potentially have a lot of runoff but not a lot of soil loss? More compaction. Yep. And the plants absorb. That's right. So lawn is often, there's a lot of traffic on it. We're mowing it, we're walking on it. Sometimes it's been highly disturbed by this construction of a home. So it tends to be compact. And so we get that soil runoff, but the plants and the roots are protecting the soil. So the soil stays in place. So that's why that would happen. And what was the highest? What activity was the highest in that soil that was disturbed and bare soil without the cover? When we were looking at those pans in the front of the samples, what did you see the most of? Yeah, in that annually tilled cornfield. And what happened in that sample? What did you notice? Okay. Right. So there was no cover. That's right. There was a lot of soil in the water, and there was the most soil loss. So a lot of erosion, a lot of soil loss in that bare, unprotected soil. Great.
Very good.
I think that's it for those questions.
Yeah, we did have one question that came up during that, or it must, I think it was maybe right after we started that video about, is prime farmland protected in Connecticut? That's a very good question. And you know, I think I know from our experience at NRCS and then also working with folks in the state, I know there's a number of different programs that landowners are able to get involved with that can be like conservation easements on their land. And I know that prime farmland is one of the criteria used in seeing if people are, you know, either eligible to participate in those programs, to say put maybe their farmland into a conservation easement or something. And then also if there was, say, like an application period for one of those programs, prime farmland might be used to rank maybe you know, who would get priority for involvement in that kind of program. Lisa, do you have anything to
Yeah,
add to that?
I would say as far as regulation goes, I think, you know, certainly for some federal programs and perhaps some state where money is involved, there may be some restrictions on what you can do on prime farmland. That would be true if you have some kind of an agricultural easement. All right. Also, you might be able to put pasture in, but not build a barn on it. And other than that, I think if there were a regulation protecting prime farmland, it would be at the town level in Connecticut. That'd be my thought.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, we do have, you know, a history. There's quite a bit of it, you know, here in the state with commercial, industrial, residential development, you know, has really crept into our farmland areas. So we do have a lot of areas that were of prime farmland that have been developed to a certain level. And then we also see some land use change with agricultural land now. Like I know just driving around, I've seen a lot of solar fields and stuff like that going in for areas that had been, you know, crop or pasture fields and whatnot. So, you know, we definitely, yeah, go ahead.
Unfortunately, the thing that makes the soil great for agriculture makes it great for a lot of other things too. It's level, it's well drained, it doesn't have a lot of stones. So it's you know, there's a lot of competition for those lands. It's something to think about for sure.
Most definitely. So, but great question about prime farmland there. So I'm not seeing any other questions so far. We have one more very short video here. I'm going to cue that up. And
I want you to pretend that this apple represents our planet, okay? If the apple represents the Earth, how much of the Earth's surface about is covered with water?
Half.
More than half, yeah? It's about 3/4 of it, about 75%, a little less than that. But all you future mathematicians, if I'm going to get 3/4 of my apple, I'm going to cut it in half like this, and then what am I going to do to it? How do I get 3/4? I cut one of those pieces in half, that's right. So I'm going to cut one of those pieces in half like this. So now then, I have about 3/4 of the Earth's surface that's covered with water and 1/4 that's not. But of the 1/4 that's not water, half of it is in polar ice caps and high mountain ranges. We can't use it to produce that food, fiber, or lumber. So about half of that, again, my future mathematicians, when I'm multiplying fractions,
I multiply the top times the top and the bottom times the bottom. So now I have 1/2 of 1/4. What's 1 times 1? 1 times 1. Go ahead. It's 1. What's 2 times 4? 2 times 4. 2 groups of 4 is 8. So now I have 1/8 of the Earth's surface. But of this 1/8, 3/4 of it is too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry, too steep, or too shallow. Cannot be used to produce the food, fiber, and lumber to feed, clothe, and shelter all those 6.7+ billion people on the face of the planet. What that means is that we can't use this much. This is what we got left. What I have now is 1/4 of 1/8. Anybody know what 4 times 8 is? 4 times 8.
14.
No. It's 32. So what I have now is 1/32 of the Earth's surface. That's how much of the Earth's surface we use to produce that food, fiber, and lumber. But the whole slice isn't really what we use. The soil is just the thin skin. And that thin skin of the soil on the face of the planet, that stuff is fragile. It washes away, it blows away, it can erode. And so it's important for us to take care of it. We build stuff on it. We lose some of this every year. And so it's very important to take care of our soil. Because if we don't, there won't be enough food, fiber, and lumber to feed, clothe, and shelter all the people on the face of the planet. So that's why it's important to take care of your soil, because it's a scarce natural resource and it's slowly renewable. Not in your lifetime. If we lose it, will it be restored and repaired?
Okay. All right. So just had that. We'd like to share that. Lisa, we got to make a video of you doing that, because I remember seeing you doing that at NRCA, and I always enjoyed that demo.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do
The
that.
bigger knife, the better, right?
So does anybody have any questions about, or I think we have you have a prepared question for that? I don't think so. So we just wanted to open up the floor to any questions about any of the content today. We definitely just really wanted to focus on the soil ecosystems and soil conservation and land use management. If you don't have any questions right now, but you think of something later, feel free to get in touch with us. I think our contact information is on the Connecticut Envirothon soil webpage. And still not seeing any in the chat.
Maybe before you go, you could give us a little preview for next month.
That's true. Okay, so yeah, that's yeah, we kind of switched up things, because we had intended for this February workshop, we wanted to do our virtual soil texturing activity. And what we intend to do is Lisa and I went out to a field site. Was that back in November, or maybe it was early December or something like that? Anyway, there was no snow on the ground. And so we collected a bunch of material, and we're gonna sort out the logistics of distributing that to your schools. And we want to, we have some good presentation from Dawn Pettinelli at the UConn's Soil Plant Nutrient Analysis Laboratory, showing us texture by feel and how to conduct that, and also about how she measures texture in the lab. And then we want to do a live demo, and so we'll all kind of have like the same soil texture samples, and we'll go over how to do that. So we can't get everybody out to the pit this year again for the workshop, but we will try to get everybody dirty just the same with some of these soil texture samples that we got. So so we're gonna sort that out with the steering committee, and we'll do that. And we also have a sort of a surprise coming to the school, a gift from the Soil Science Society of Southern New England, the SNE group, purchased some educational materials, a soil textbook that we're going to distribute with that to the schools. So we're going to try to couple distribution of those together. So that's what's I think on the in the queue for next time. So thank you everybody for attending. Lisa, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Lisa and I used to get to work with Lisa almost every day, so it's a treat getting to do these with
Yeah.
Lisa. I don't see you as much anymore. So. But anyway, everybody take care, stay safe, stay warm, and we will see you next time.